Okay, here we go. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. Push a button, do something. Don't just sit there. Topic for today's episode: entry-level stealth movement in woodland and or urban settings. Notice we still haven't gone to the pew-pews yet. Still learning some skills any idiot can throw around downrange and hit a target. It's not going to do any good if you don't know how to move about, take cover, conceal, camouflage. It all adds up before you even start to touch weapons. Weapon systems are useless if you're just a sitting target. So it's going to be the last thing we cover, I'm going to tell you right now. Like I said, any idiot can pull a trigger and hit a target. There's so much more involved, and I'm going to tell you something else before we even get onto that topic. You think you can shoot? Well, you think you can hit a target? You think you got what it takes? Go to a stress range sometime, a real stress range, where lights are flashing, fans are blowing, horns are honking, water's getting squirted at you, and you got to engage your targets. And it usually works around a stress range and no-shoot situations. You think your shit's wired together? You don't know anything. Wait till you try a stress range. But I digress. Today's episode is going to be on stealth movement. Let's cover the basics. Stealth movement is less about becoming invisible and more about becoming unremarkable. Think about that for a second. Unremarkable. This is a lot of the stuff we talked about is going to start tying together. The beginner often imagines stealth as dramatic, crouched figures, slow motion steps, and exaggerated caution. In reality, effective stealth is subtle, efficient, and grounded in awareness rather than theatrics. I feel compelled to tell you that all that movie bullshit doesn't come into play, ever. So think about what we're talking about here. In reality, effective stealth is subtle, efficient, and grounded in awareness rather than theatrics. That jumping over the hoods of cars and doing somersaults and coming up shooting and all that, it's all a crock of shit. Nobody does that in real life in any situation. And if you do, you're full of shit. Stealth is the art of controlling your presence, how you look, how you sound, how you move, and how you are perceived within an environment. Or we should say the level of perception of you within an environment. How that makes more sense. Whether navigating a dense woodland or moving through an urban landscape, the principles of stealth remain consistent, though their application is going to differ. Woodland environments are going to reward the patience and environmental blending, while urban environments are they demand behavioral camouflage and timing more than anything else. I myself feel a lot more at home in a woodland environment. I am a tree ninja. I am not at all comfortable with urban warfare. We received plenty of training on it. I am not comfortable with it. I can go damn near invisible in the woods. It's damn near impossible to do that in an urban environment. Patience, adaptability, that all comes into play in a woodland environment, mountains, something like that. It has very little to do with an urban environment. An urban environment is just, it's messed up. I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk about it a little bit, but I know of no really good way to breach and move through an urban environment without taking risks. And I don't like risks. This episode provides an introduction to stealth movement, focusing on individual skills applicable to both environments. It is designed for beginners who want practical, realistic techniques rather than that movie bullshit we see all the time. You will in no way be an expert or even effective after listening to this without putting it into practice. I will again attempt to make this episode a little more serious. That's how serious I take this. I can't stress this enough. If you really want to talk about stealth movement, I mean, maybe we should have talked about camouflage first, for whatever's going on. But I I really think you need to know stealth movement, because then you can combine camouflage more effectively. That's how we learned. We learned about movement first, and then we went over camouflage techniques. You got to remember, no one is invisible. You will never be invisible. The question remains, how visible will you be once trained? And I'm not training you. I'm just telling you how this works and what you need to learn to be effective. I'm not trying to train you how to do anything here. I'm just trying to explain to you how the reality of this situation works. And when we're talking about stealth movement, we're talking about getting through a woodland area, like getting from checkpoint to checkpoint with your group, or like if you went to the assembly point and no one was at the assembly point, or your assembly point was occupied, or you get to your stash point and it's empty, and you realize all of a sudden that paranoia you're thinking of people looking at you isn't paranoia, it's reality. You need to know how to move. You need to know how to go into gray man instantly and get into an area where you're at least not sticking out like a flashing light. Like I said, you're never going to be truly invisible, and you're fooling yourself if you think you will. Snipers, stay platoon guys, they're about as close to invisible as you're ever going to get, and they can even be found with a trained eye. I'm not saying my eye by any means, but it can be done, especially after a shot's fired. It doesn't take much. But you need to understand you're never going to be at that level in a civilian role. You're just going to try to make it as good as you can. You're not looking to be special forces by the end of this episode, just a little less visible and a little less noticed. This is taking Gray Man to a whole new level. It's not about going on the attack or the offense. This is about moving yourself and members of your group, if necessary, from one location to the next without attracting attention. Nothing more, nothing less. This is not engagement. This is not get close enough to throw a hand grenade. This is moving away from a threat, not moving at a threat. Before discussing environments, it's critical to understand the core principles that govern all stealth movement. Big one. This is a huge one. Noise discipline. Sound travels further than most people realize. A snap twig or gravel crunch can carry well beyond visible range. This is greatly amplified at night. Your key ideas here are you got to avoid sudden, sharp noises, snaps, clanks, impacts. You got to control your gear. Loose items are your enemy. No loose snaps. This is one of the reasons I hate Velcro. If you go to open something when you're moving in stealth mode and you go to open Velcro, you know what Velcro sounds like. Well, a lot of like Temu crap has Velcro strips on it wide enough to cover a Buick. You tear that apart, it's like screaming at the top of your lungs. That's why I like snaps over Velcro, and I like twist locks better than that, but you got to work with what you have. I understand that. That is why you just got to discipline yourself not to be pulling out any gear while you're moving in stealth mode. It's extremely important to understand this concept. You also have to move at a pace where you can feel each step before committing weight. Don't stomp your feet. I don't care if you got tarantulas crawling on you. You're not going to stomp your feet. You gotta. Well, we'll talk about how to step in a little bit, but when you step, you should feel what you're stepping on. If you feel something unsteady under your foot, don't step down. You step on a piece of dry wood, that thing's going to snap. It's going to be like a penny cracker going off. You really need to think about noise discipline when you're moving, because noise will give you away before visual. The visual of you, what am I trying to say? People will notice noise before they see you, okay? Next is your visual signature. Humans are wired to detect movement and contrast more than shape. This is primal, all right? Slow movement reduces detections. This running through the woods like your ass is on fire doesn't work. You got to move slow and deliberate. But don't move like a constant movement for a quarter mile. You're going to have to stop. You're going to have to listen. Maybe double back. We're going to talk about, we're getting real close to talking about J-hooks and movement like that. Right now, you just need to keep in mind you don't want to be charging through an area if you're trying to be stealthy. You're going to make very slow movement. You're trying to walk on sand. If you see sand, if you're in an area where it's like the sand and soil mixture, try to find sand and maybe even, oh man, I hate to even say walk on pine needles, but pine needles beat branches. Problem with pine needles is there's usually branches close at hand. So that's what I'm talking about. You really need to feel before you put your foot down. And if that means moving really slow, that means moving really slow. Your visual signature, you're going to break up your outlines, especially shoulders and head. You got to remove the human element from yourself when you're moving through the woods. That's where a slight crouch comes into play. That's where watching where you walk in a plane. You always be careful not to silhouette yourself against a bright background or a completely contrasting background. Light and shadow awareness is part of this. Light defines visibility more than distance. You got to stay in the shadows whenever humanly possible, and if that means waiting to move, it might be a better idea to wait to move. Avoid crossing open, well-lit areas without a definitive reason, like life or death reason. Understand how lighting changes throughout the day. Your camouflage changes throughout the day, and like I said, we can talk about that later, but your camouflage is going to change throughout the day, especially if you pick grass and weeds and shit like that and you got sticking out of your head like one of those freaks in the movie. That shit's going to die by midday, especially if it's hot. You need to change that shit out as the day goes on, unless you're in a field of dead grass, and of course it would make more sense to have that, but you have to be thinking about what you're doing. And you have to be always thinking about what you're wearing compared to what is behind you. Like I talked about before, timing. Stealth is not constant motion. It is controlled motion. Move when ambient noise is present. If wind is blowing hard, that's a good time to move. If there's a lot of foot traffic in some other area where people are talking and carrying on or machinery's going or something like that, that's the time to move. You got to take time to learn the room before you move, is what I'm saying. Pause frequently to observe. You have to, like I said, you have to stop and look. Like if you're moving and you're dragging something and the high winds are blocking that sound, or say some kind of machinery is blocking that sound, and you're watching and you see they're about to shut the machinery off, you got to stop dragging your shit. Because now you have no protection against that sound. Timing, you got to check everything that's going on and make sure you have enough time to move if you're using some kind of a disturbance. After a disturbance stops and it's quiet, you got to give everything time to reset. It's not like, oh shit, run. No. If you're moving right, you should be very close to concealment or something like that where you can pause and wait, if at all possible. Awareness over movement. Most beginners focus too much on how they move and not enough on when and where they move to. Observation is more important than motion. That's what I'm talking about, checking everything out before you go. Identify threats before they identify you. Read the room, like we said, read the room. Look around. Don't just move into an area and then start scanning. I can't stress it enough. It's not like in the movies where you see them move out and everybody moves and start looking up and whatever. No, before anybody moves out, you have to really look around. And when you get to an area where you're undercover, where you know you're not seen, stop and look around some more. You got to stop and look. You need to plan your routes before committing to them, if at all possible, and that means everyone in the group. Everyone should be aware of it. But you need to know how to space people out. If you have 5 people 5 feet apart, somebody's going to mow you down, or some kind of explosion, IED or something could just take you out, all of you out at one time. Plan your routes before committing to them, even if it's just you. Plan your route before committing to it. If I said brute, I meant route. Sorry. Movement fundamentals. The stealth walk. This is, man. If you ask somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about, or is one of those guys that watches a movie and they think they're Rambo, ask them to show you a stealth walk. It's going to be the funniest thing you've ever seen. The technique of a stealth walk. I'm going to break it down as simply as I can. It's got to be practiced, though. I'm telling you, don't just listen to this, try to commit it to memory, and then move on. You got to practice this, and it's good to practice it with other people. But But the technique of a stealth walk is you're going to step with the outside of your edge first, outside edge of your foot first. You're going to place the outside edge of your foot down and roll your foot in slowly. You're going to gradually apply weight. And if you feel something, that's when you stop. That's when you, before you commit your weight. You might be something you can push out of the way with your foot if you take it back a little bit, or you might have to redistribute your weight at another location. But you don't just walk and commit weight to a footprint without checking where you're going. Your weight distribution, you should never shift your full weight instantly, because you might be standing on something that's okay, but if you all of a sudden put, all your weight on it, you might crack something. You might crack a big stick or something like that. You want to keep your knee slightly bent. It works like a shock absorption system for your weight, which you're putting weight on something. You want to maintain balance over your center. That way you've got that firm, if you have to plant and move off, you're not off balance. You're not going to take 2 steps and collapse. Always have a backup position if a step becomes unsafe. That's easier said than done. It's a good idea, though, when you're walking. Always be looking for point B. Like if you have to get, into another position real quick. Like if you're really probably, if you realize you're like way too much in the open, like your line of sight in the open, your backup position should already be flooding into your mind and you should be moving in that direction. It's not the time to realize you don't have a backup position if you're standing there in the middle of somebody's line of sight. Your posture. Contrary to popular belief, exaggerating crouching is inefficient. It's extremely fatiguing. And you're straining, so you're burning twice as many calories just because you're straining to be, walking like, who's that? I don't know. I'm running a blank right now. It's a movie character I'm thinking of that walks. Quasimodo. You're not walking like Quasimodo. You're walking slightly lowered, but you're not squatting. You're not like shuffling. You're walking in a position where you can control all of your movement. Knees slightly bent, rolling your feet. If you bend your knees too much, you're not going to be able to roll your feet right. So find that happy medium. Just stand there and try to roll your foot like I talked about, starting on the outside edge. If you can do that comfortably without straining while slightly lowered, not squatting, you got your position. You don't want to be in a position where your upper body is reduced to fatigue. It's nothing but fatigue because you're trying to maintain balance. Your core is going to take a beating if you do that, and you're going to be exhausted way too soon. You want to control your pace. Fast stealth is usually very poor stealth. Move in short bursts, pause frequently, let your environment dictate your speed and sound. Do not think you're smarter than nature, because you're not. The other thing you got to keep in mind, if you're being really stealthy and you're not checking out high grass and stuff around you, you might take that extra step and kick up a whole flock of birds. And if you don't think all the bad guys are going to turn their heads and point their direction and all the flock of birds taking off, you're out of your mind. So now you got bad guys that were just tipped off where to point their guns to get to you. So you need to let your environment dictate your speed and sound. If you're moving quietly enough, you'll be hearing birds. You'll hear birds moving. You'll hear them chirping. You'll hear them doing the bird thing. You'll know it when you hear it. Don't move towards it if at all possible. Woodland stealth movement is, like I said, that's my meat and potatoes. Woodlands present a complex but also very forgiving environment. There is abundant cover, but also constant noise hazards. This is what I'm talking about. Read the room. You should be looking well ahead of yourself. Are there a bunch of dry sticks on the route that you plan to take? Don't take that route. It's a bad idea, right? You don't want to do that. You're looking at walking. It's like setting off one of them big things, penny crackers, if you're walking through sticks. And if you got to run, everybody's going to hear it, because now you're putting more weight down quicker and you're breaking more sticks. So you really need to be aware of where you're walking. You're looking for leaf litter, fallen branches, uneven ground, because think about it. When you kick dirt, like when you're trying to climb, whether you know it or not, you're making noise. It's a noise that other animals don't make because they're smart enough not to make that noise. So try to look for even ground. Try not to move through dense vegetation. Broadleaf plants make a lot of noise when you move through them if you're going too fast. If you think you can do it slowly enough, but you also got to keep in mind you're going to be making a clear trail when you move through broadleaf plants. Your foot placement in a forest, it's very unpredictable. The best practice is, like I said, scan each step before placing your foot. Now, this sounds exhausting, scanning your steps, scanning your environment, scanning your trail, looking ahead, blah, blah, blah. It is. It is exhausting. You can get a headache from it, and that's just the beginning of the problem. It is extremely exhausting. So keep that in mind. When you're moving through an environment, if you're doing it properly, you're going to need to make stops. You can't handle an oh shit situation if you're already exhausted. So scan each step before placing your foot. Again, avoid dry sticks, crunchy leaves whenever possible. Step on solid objects like planted rocks and packed soil. If noise is unavoidable, minimize sharpness rather than total sound. You'll never, I'm telling you, I don't care if you're wearing cotton on your feet and you're walking on cotton, there's always going to be some kind of sound. Using vegetation for concealment, like I mentioned briefly, plants can conceal movement but also create noise. You need to remember that, especially the broadleaf plants. When they brush against you, they can make a lot of noise. Move around dense brush instead of through it whenever possible. The other thing is you're going to increase your visual footprint moving through dense brush, because instead of you being 5'10" moving through brush and stuff, you're maybe 5'10", and from shoulder to shoulder you might be not even a yard. But moving through dense brush, now you're not 5'10" anymore. Now you're more like 7 or 8 feet, and you're probably more like 2 yards across. It's the same thing with shadows. You're moving through brush, but the brush is moving with you also. It's another good reason to be crouching. If necessary, move slowly to avoid shaking the branches that I'm talking about and all that stuff. You're still going to move them. I'm telling you, you're still going to move them, and you're still going to make noise, but you're going to make less noise and make less movement. You have to avoid brushing against dry foliage at every chance. If you move into dry foliage, especially with like the kind of gear the 511 gear or stuff like that, or battle dress uniforms or camis or whatever, that cotton and that poplin makes a lot of noise when it brushes up against dry foliage. You have to manage your vertical profile. Your height makes you visible. Terrain dips, logs. Moving over a log is a science. It's not difficult, but you should practice it. You can make much, much, much less of a profile if you know the correct way to move over a log. Man, it's one of the first things they teach you in the Marines. I don't know how to tell you how to do it in the video or in this episode, but like I said, we have videos coming. While I'm thinking about moving over logs, the only thing worse than increasing your profile moving over a log is going on top of a hill and walking upright across the top of a hill. If you have to cross a hill, you should be low crawling across the top of a hill. You should not be standing. You should not even be crouching. You should be low crawling. Get to know the snakes. Natural noise making. A forest is rarely silent. So what we talked about earlier about using your environment to your advantage. Wind gusts, great time to move. Great time to move. Rustling leaves, great time to move. Flowing water, be aware. Loud flowing water. A gurgling creek is almost hypnotic, and people will focus on it and listen to it. And when that noise is disrupted, if it's not very loud, it's like, just like screaming. It's so loud. When you disrupt that hypnotic sound, it's a big mistake, and a lot of people do it. When we took escape and evasion classes, that was one of the things I remember they really harped on was avoid like little brooks and creeks, because that sound, it's so easy to make a contrast to that sound and give yourself away. Scent and wind awareness. It's overlooked quite often. Wind direction does matter. Now, I'm not talking about the Russians have their German Shepherds are out looking for you or anything stupid like that. But if you've been out in the woods for I'm going to tell you, man, whether you believe it or not, if you've been out in the woods for a couple days and you've been running or you've been moving quick or whatever, you're going to be gamey, especially if it's hot. If you've ever experienced jungle rot, you know what I'm talking about. If you spend enough time in the jungle, that smell that your body produces with your clothing, it's like a big bowl of shit, dead animal, diarrhea, and rotten milk mixed together, and it's like you smeared it all over yourself. It is a horrible smell, and it will travel on the wind. You have to move against the wind whenever possible. It moves your scent away. Be aware of how your movement disturbs the environment. Now, it's not like somebody's going to walk past and smell a tree you touched, but I am telling you, if you're standing still and someone gets close to you and they know what that smell is, they're going to know there's somebody around them. It's that disturbing if you're out in the woods for a while. People don't talk about that when they talk about camping and survival and all that shit. And everybody always thinks it's just a great day. You live out of your pack, you eat your MRE or your dehydrated meal, you drink some water, you take a nap and you're lean to, you get up and you move again. That's not what it's like. It's not. You're going to be disgusting after a couple days. I actually carry those man wipes in my pack for this exact reason. My 3-day pack, it's this exact reason, is to at least take a little bit of a whore's bath or whatever you want to call it, get cleaned up a little bit so you're not throwing that much, and not only that, but it's nauseating to yourself. It is disgusting, and my freaking cat is starting again. Hi, I see you. Yeah, I know you're there. Trust me, everybody knows you're there. I know you're there. Urban stealth movement. Now, this is where I'm not comfortable. I've received way too much training on it to feel this uncomfortable about it. Urban environments are almost impossible to move without being seen at some point. Again, it's how unremarkable you are, not how invisible you are. So this is one of those times in the woods, like woodland environment, man, I'll carry a howitzer. I don't care. I can camouflage it. I can carry anything. We moved 50 cows and you would have never known we were moving Browning 50 cows. In an urban environment, it's different. In an urban environment, it's impossible. It's impossible to hide a rifle. I know they show people pulling like full-length shotguns out from underneath trench coats and shit like that. First of all, if it's 100 degrees, nobody's going to be wearing a trench coat. And if you are, there's something wrong with you. You're probably going to be the first one to get dropped. Second of all, it's just a bad idea. If you can't fit it inside your pack or hide it under whatever you're wearing, again, if it's hot, you're not going to be wearing a lot. So weapon systems don't come into play so much in urban stealth movement. You're going to... It's like you can't even cover movement because if you pull a weapon out, you got to put it away again, and you can't bring. It's just a bad idea to have weapons out in urban environments. So let's just get that out there right in the front. There's less natural concealment, but there is an opportunity to blend in if you know what you're doing. Although you have to do this like in a heartbeat. You can't, stop and, check out a color chart and see what you're wearing and check the color of the stone you're going to hide. It's none of that bullshit. You got to be able to get into what you need to be instantly, which means you need to be thinking about it while you're running towards it. On top of what you're walking on top of scanning the area, on top of making sure your backpack doesn't sound like I said before, a platoon of skeletons jerking off on a tin roof. You need to have all your straps up tight. Anything you're wearing has to be secured tight. You'd be surprised what a roll of electrical tape can do to make your pack quiet, all your straps and everything. So if you're moving through an urban environment and you need to be quiet, before you even move, before you even think of moving out, check all these things because noise is going to bounce off of buildings. It's going to bounce off of cars. It bounces off the road. Noise does travel if there's no machinery or cars or anything moving. In cities, stealth is often about not looking out of place. Gray man. Nutshell, it's just being a gray man. We talked about gray man. If you don't know what I'm talking about, pause this now, go back, find the gray man, episodes, listen to The Gray Man, and then come back and listen to this, because you're going to be lost if you're just jumping in right now. One of the big tricks to moving through an urban environment is you got to walk like you belong. You got to walk like you're supposed to be there. You can't be walking around looking around like, ooh, you can't be doing that bullshit. You walk like you belong. Nothing is remarkable to you because you've been in this area for so long. You got to avoid exaggerated caution. Again, opposite of ooh, it would be withdrawing. Like every time something clicks, you jump. No, that's normal clicks for around here. You don't have to jump every time you hear a sound. And you got to match the pace and the behavior of others. If you're in New York City, you're going to move a hell of a lot faster than if you're in, Podunk, Raccoon Fuck, Oklahoma. You move with the pace of everyone around you. Read the room. I'm going to keep saying that. Read the room. Standing out is often worse than simply being seen, and that is extremely true. Movement through open areas in a city. See, this is more of a problem in a city than it is in the woods. You can always go around an open area in the woods. Sometimes you don't have that option in a city, in an urban environment. And keep in mind, I'm not talking about dystopian society where, people are grilling cats outside and, living out of shopping carts or whatever. I'm just talking about if there's something going down, like some kind of urban unrest or something like that, or civil unrest, you don't want to bring attention to yourself. You shouldn't be there in the first place. You're an idiot if you're there by choice. But if you have to get out of an area quick, read the room. Do what makes sense. Do what everyone else is doing. Don't stand out. All right? Best practice is when you got to cross a road, cross with confidence. Do not run like you're on fire. Cross with confidence. Avoid hesitation at mid-crossing, like, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing? If you're from that area, you know what you're doing. You're not going to stop in the middle of the street and read a map or something stupid like that. You got to use distractions, traffic and crowds, things like that to your advantage. I do not like the urban warfare environment. I really don't. I know I keep saying that, but I would much rather be stuck up in the woods for weeks on end than in an urban environment in chaos for a week. I would rather I'd rather do 2 weeks in the woods surviving off the land than 1 week in a civil unrest situation. That's how serious I am about this. Corners and angles in the city. You're going to see this. You're going to see this in any city. They don't make rounded corner buildings as a rule of thumb. Streets have corners, especially like four ways and stuff. You have to approach these at an angle, not directly. You approach it directly, you're going to make a massive silhouette coming around the corner if nobody else is there. If you approach it at an angle, you have a much better view of what's going on. You have to reduce your exposure before turning. Again, this is one of those things, tactically it's called cutting the pie. I can't explain it right now without visual, but I'm hoping to be able to do a whiteboard incorporated into these as soon as myself and my cohort get together again. I'd really like to do a plan where we're doing whiteboards online, but I'm going to tell you, knuckle draggers, right now, it's going to cost us more money. You better start coughing up the dead presidents. We're going to need some money. We're willing to pay for some of it, but not all of it. I'm not asking you guys to empty your bank account out. I'm not asking you guys to give more than you're comfortable with, but damn it, if you drink Starbucks, you can afford to give a couple bucks. And I probably don't like you anyhow, so if you drink Starbucks, but I'm just saying, kick in a couple bucks. If you kick in $2 a month, if enough people do it, it'll pay for almost everything we need. I know how many people are listening now. I'm getting much better analytics for some reason all of a sudden. I don't know if it happens after you reach so many downloads or something. We got a shit ton of people downloading this stuff, a shit ton of people listening to this stuff, and nobody can cough up $2 a month. You're pretty weak, people. You better get your shit together. If you know me, you know I'm not kidding. You know I'm serious. We might not know each other. We might not know each other, see each other. I don't think we're going to be sending each other Christmas cards as a rule. Well, one of you, I know I'm going to send a Christmas card to, but most of you are not going to be sending Christmas cards or anything like that. We're not close like that. But this is, we're doing you a favor. You do us a favor. And I'm not even asking you to make us rich. I'm just asking you to help us take care of this thing, all right? We've got a good program together. We've got a ton of shit to go over. And we might even get to the pews a little quicker if somebody kicks up some money here. So just think about it, all right? I know you're sitting there thinking, no, I can still click for free. Screw it, It's nothing lasts forever, and forever is a lot shorter if everyone isn't helping out. This is like think of it like one big fucking mag. We're all helping each other out here. If you kick in money, you're going to be helping out somebody that might not know one of the principles we're talking about. If they kick in money, we might be helping out someone else that doesn't know what the hell we're talking about. And if you know everything we're talking about, what the hell are you listening to this? Why are you listening to this in the first place? So I'm assuming that if you're sitting there listening to this, you're curious about different ways to approach things in an uprooted, for lack of a better term, situation. I'm happy, and my cohorts are happy to provide this information. We think everyone should know it. However, man, nothing in life is free. Unless you can come up with some better bartering system, like, some way to get us iced tea instead of money, that's fine. Definitely coffee. You can pay in coffee. I don't give a shit. You can pay in coffee. But I'm talking about $2 a month. All right, back on the subject. I beat that up enough. I'm tired of telling you doorknobs to give up some money every now and then, because very few people are. And I know the people that are getting something out of it, and I know they appreciate it, and we all appreciate them. We've actually made contact with a bunch of them. One of you doorknobs out there, I'm talking to you almost every day now. So, you're not a doorknob, but you know what I mean. We will be reaching out to you. We talk to our people, but our people are people helping us like we're helping them. You're not our people if you're just out there taking shit and running with it. So you want to feel like you belong to a group? This is one of the ways you feel like a group. You help each other out. Back to the podcast. Noise in urban settings. Cities are noisy, but in a specific way. You got to keep in mind, a lot of the noise in the city has a rhythm to it, which I know it sounds like some weak-ass music video, but it's the truth. Machinery has a rhythm to it. Traffic has a rhythm to it. Footsteps on concrete can echo, and they have a rhythm to it. People walk in cadence. And if you watch two people that have never been in the military and they're walking together down the street, there's a good chance they're walking in step with each other. Keep that in mind. If you want to keep the noise level down, walk in cadence with other people. I know I talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again. Loose gear, loose straps, loose equipment. Big enemy of yours. You need to have your gear secured. Duct tape, electrical tape, I don't give a shit, but you need to have that shit on lockdown, especially if you're running. You got to blend your noise. Your movement noise should be blended into passing vehicles, maybe HVAC systems. Like I said, foot traffic rhythms. There is a rhythm to foot traffic, and if you go to the city and you just sit, like one of my big things is I used to go to Disney like every 3 weeks. Yeah, I'm a Disney nut, deal with it. But I used to go to Disney every 3 weeks. I was actually dating a bartender at Disney. She used to get me in the parks for free. And I didn't ride the rides. I would just sit and study people. And that is what I would do. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. I've always profiled people. I would sit and study people. And it's true. You can usually tell who the parent of a kid is, even if they're 40 feet apart. They talk the same. They walk the same. They have the same posture, everything. And you watch these people, and you would be dumbfounded to see how large of a group of people can be walking through an amusement park all in step. It is mind-bending how much this happens. So if it's the easiest way for you to remember it, remember foot traffic rhythms. All right? Light discipline in an urban area. Artificial lighting creates harsh visibility zones. It makes massive shadows. Shadows are your enemy. It doesn't matter where you are. That's why it's really good to move at 12 noon. You have the minimum shadow at that point. But stay out of direct sunlight whenever possible, as a rule of thumb. Use shadows created by buildings and structures. You're not going to create a shadow inside of a shadow if you do it right. It's possible, though. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to go into the photon physics or anything like that, but you can cast a shadow inside of a shadow. Avoid sudden transitions between light and dark. That goes without saying. Vertical awareness. Urban environments are all three-dimensional. Windows, balconies, and rooftops can observe you. Do not assume all your threats are on ground level. So now we're throwing something else into the fold. Moving stealthy means looking up, looking down, looking everywhere. Okay, this is where it gets tricky. Transitioning between environments. Moving from woodland to urban or vice versa requires an adjustment, obviously. Your mental shift. First of all, woodland, you're avoiding detection through concealment. Urban, you're avoiding detection through normalcy. Normalcy means doing what everybody else is doing. Your movement adjustments. Woodland movement is slower and more deliberate. Urban movement is smoother and more continuous. Start getting this shit in your head, because I am going to stress you practicing this with other people. If you have to, video yourself with your phone. Everybody's phone takes videos. Video yourself with the phone walking. Video yourself walking with a group of people. Video, maybe use your voice recorder. Turn your voice recorder on your phone and hold it down alongside your leg and listen to how much noise you're making when you're walking on different surfaces, just to give you an idea of how much noise you do make when you walk. Also, run around the block. Listen to me. This is another one you got to do. You just to hear me out. Run around the block and then listen to how loud you're breathing. The easiest way to do that, to tell how much noise you're making, is put earplugs in. So when you stop and you stop running and you start breathing, you hear that noise. There's a lot of science and physics behind the noise that's being made and how it's being made, and the cavitation in the air and all that bullshit. Long story short, your breathing makes a shit ton of noise. So at night, you got to keep that in mind. You're going to be moving even slower so you don't exhaust yourself to where you're breathing heavy. To sum the whole transitioning from one environment to another, visibility versus recognition. In the woods, being seen as failure. In the city, being noticed as failure. All right, one more time. In the woods, being seen as failure. In the city, being noticed as failure. You're going to be seen in the city. There's cameras everywhere. There's people everywhere. You're going to be seen. How much are you going to be seen? How much are you going to be noticed? That's the thing. A few common beginner mistakes. Moving too slowly. Ironically, excessive slowness can attract attention. This is a primal thing. People pick up on this quickly because predators move slowly when closing on prey. This is something you can't deprogram, something you can't change. If you're moving slow, it looks unnatural and possibly predatory behavior. So keep that in mind. In woodland settings, the slowness, it actually increases fatigue and makes more mistakes, because you're doing that crouch thing and you're trying to watch what you're stepping on, and you're stepping carefully and you're re-stepping and backing. And it's just keep it in mind. And I said it before, that crouching thing, over-crouching. This is something beginners do. You see the wannabes, the airsoft guys. Hats off to you, you freaking wannabe pussies. Beginners hunch excessively. They bend over excessively when they run, when they move, when they hide behind something. So all you airsoft commandos, you're doing it wrong. Ignoring your environment. Let's just go back to it one more time. I don't like people that play airsoft, because I swear to God, the next person that tells me they understand combat because they play airsoft, they're going to have a size 10 up their ass. And that's just a start. That's just going to bring them in close so I can start punching them in the back of the head. Okay, moving on. Ignoring the environment. Stealth is not a fixed technique. It adapts, constantly adapts. You, what works on dry leaves is going to fail on wet ground. What works at night fails in daylight, etc., etc., etc. You have to constantly adapt. Poor gear management. I know I keep covering it, but I see it all the time. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. Tape up my gear. And then here comes, Billy Commando. I know it all. Walking around with straps. He looks like a freaking rabid octopus running down the street because he's got shit flying all over the place. No. Don't do it. Secure your shit. Tie your shit down. Tape your shit down. Whatever you got to do. And don't overdo your loadout. Your loadout, especially during stealth movement, should be as minimal as possible. I know I didn't say that before, and I should have, but when you do a loadout for movement, you really shouldn't be overpacked. You really shouldn't have more gear. Carry as little as possible, and if you have canteens, fill them up. If you drink some, drink it all. Don't have sloshing canteens. That's another dead giveaway. Tunnel vision. Focusing only on immediate steps leads to poor awareness. Always scan ahead. Plan multiple steps in advance. Do not get tunnel vision. It is fatiguing, but do not get tunnel vision. Training and practice. Listen, stealth movement is a perishable skill. It requires repetition. You need to do it and do it and do it. And then you can take a break, but then start doing it again. You just work this into your weekly plan for training. 1 week, practice your stealth movement and practice it with other people. Maybe just have somebody turn their back and have them raise their hand when they hear you moving, and try to move across an area without them hearing you moving. Honest to God, it's harder than you think. Now, I mean, if you're in a building on a hard floor, with socks on, and stocking feet, well, yeah, you're probably going to be able to do it. I mean, some of you'll probably be able to do it. Leave it at that. Controlled practice. Walk quietly across different surfaces. Listen to yourself. Practice stepping without noise. Train balance and control. And I'm going to tell you something. Practice turning. Practice walking and turning and changing directions. You'll be surprised how much noise you're going to make sometimes. Some people just do it naturally. Some people can move stealthy naturally without even trying. Very few, though. Observation drills. Sit and observe movement patterns. Identify how people and animals move naturally. Learn what normal actually looks like. This is what I was talking about watching people at Disney. I was amazed at watching people, different ways people walk, the gait of people, the short people with long gaits and the tall people with short gaits. It was just amazing to me. Learn your environment that you could be moving through. You got to train in different terrains. You got to practice in daylight, low light, no light conditions. Learn how weather changes movement. And I'm going to tell you something. This is another good one. Go up and down the steps a couple times with the light on. See if you notice anything. Then turn the lights up. Make it really dark. Do it safely. Hold on to the handrail, but go up and down the steps in low light and see what you notice differently. And if you don't notice, I'll tell you. But see if you can figure it out when the lights are lower. Feedback loops. Record yourself moving if possible. We talked about that already. Definitely when the opportunity exists, practice with a partner observing you. And identify, mark down whatever you got to do, and make corrections for what gives you away. You got to have realistic expectations. Stealth is not invisibility. You will make noise. You're going to make noise. I'm sorry, you're going to make noise. You cannot defy gravity. You will make noise. You will be seen occasionally. This is expected. You will be seen. The goal is to reduce detection, not eliminate it. Even highly trained individuals rely on planning, timing, and environmental advantage. Pure movement skill is not the only thing that's going to get you stealth. You have to take advantage of everything around you. I would say, to wrap it up, because this isn't going to be that long today, I don't think. Entry-level stealth movement is about discipline, awareness, and adaptability, and not so much about theatrics. The beginner must unlearn exaggerated ideas of self, like the movie crap, and replace it with grounded, practical techniques which require practice. We talked about that. Woodland environments. I'm at home in a woodland environment. A lot of people aren't. That's why it takes so much extra training for some people to do woodland environments. It does take a lot of work to learn how to blend with nature, how to blend with noises, and using your terrain intelligently. Urban settings, you got a lot more stuff there to knock your noise down, but now your camouflage and your timing and understanding human patterns has become more aware. So you're not so worried about, you're always worried about noise, but you're not as concerned about noise in an urban setting as you are in a woodland setting. But what you lose in noise, you have to pick up in visual patterns and make adjustments for them. Ultimately, stealth is less about how you move and more about when, where, and why you move. I guess another thing you can say is if you don't have to move, don't. A quiet step means little if taken at the wrong time. A perfectly hidden position is useless if poorly chosen. This is all common sense shit. Master the fundamentals, noise control, visual awareness, timing, and everything else building up from there. Over time, movement becomes less conscious and more intuitive. You stop trying to be stealthy and instead become someone who simply does not draw attention to themselves, no matter what terrain, environment, temperature you're in. The goal is to not to draw attention to yourself. And I guess in practical terms, that's what stealth really is. Don't draw attention to yourself. If you're one of the people that has to have the loudest laugh in the room and has to have everybody tell you how good you look, or has to arrive late so everybody sees you coming in the door, or has to do everything bigger, better, and faster than everyone else because you're going to tell a better story than the last person, you're never going to be stealthy. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. You're going to fail. You got to give all that shit up if you want to be stealthy. That's it. That's all I got on this. Y'all watch your six and peace out.